Today is all about new drugstore makeup. We're gonna do a full face. Well, almost a full face. I do have my brows on. I did use my e.l.f. Ultra Precise Brow Pencil in Tout, but everything else is new. The drugstore launches a ton of new releases around this time of year, and I already did one dedicated video, so I will try and link that up in the cards. But there's just so many new releases that I can't or couldn't fit it all into one video. There was more things that caught my attention on Ulta, and so I went back and placed an additional order. So we're just gonna focus on like maybe some of the stuff that even came out since the first time I placed the order, and then some of the stuff that like I had but couldn't incorporate in the other video. And there's pretty much a full face here. Like they drop a ton of things in drugstore all at the same time. So it's not just like sporadically throughout the year. It's like a ton of new releases come in the very beginning. So let me briefly tell you what I picked up, and don't judge me on this one, you guys, but I finally picked up the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. So we're gonna be trying that on. One thing that I'm actually dying to try, I'm not even sure why, it just seemed interesting. This is the Wet n Wild 5-in-1 Essence Primer and Finish Powder. So it's supposed to be like a primer plus a finishing powder. So I think that's exactly how we'll try and use it. I actually got just today, just came in like an hour ago, the new Balm Glow from Makeup Revolution, where this one is the apply to the cheeks and lips. It's supposed to be very similar to the Jones Road one that came out last year. I also picked up 3 different shades of the new NYX Fat, what are these called? Fat Lip Drip Oils. I had placed the order on NYX's website actually when, like the day that it launched, and these just showed up like 2 days ago. I have a primer from Essence. I did pick up a primer from Makeup Revolution, which is in that other video. I have a cream blush from Ulta because they did launch a bunch of cream products and they had like a stackable trio, and I picked that up, and also this one, but didn't get to try it yet. And then Wet n Wild had a makeup stick that they released. It says Pampered, and on it says limited edition. I don't know what that's about, but it looks kind of like a highlighter, so I think that's probably how I'll try and use it. And then e.l.f. had the O-Face Satin lipsticks. These aren't as new of a release, but I wanted to give this a shot as well. Essence also dropped an eye primer. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much in a nutshell. There's a couple of other things here, but I will be quiet now and we'll hop right into it. I am so ready to dive into this stuff. This Essence primer really caught my eye because I get a lot of redness on my face, and so I'm always trying to conceal it. This one is the Redness Reducer Primer Balancing and Calming with Green Tea Extract. So I'm gonna use this on targeted areas of the face today because I also wanna do the Wet n Wild primer. So where I wanna place this, you guys, is just on my nose, and see how well it reduces the redness just on my nose. It's a green thick consistency. Let's just go right into it. I believe L'Oreal just dropped a bunch of different primers, and one of them was like a redness reducer as well, but it was super drying on my skin and I just really didn't like it. And while there's a lot of redness reducers that are being dropped in the drugstore right now, I haven't actually found one that does the trick at all without trying out my skin or making my foundation look super cakey and like not laying well on top of the foundation. So I guess I'm still on the hunt, and I'm hoping Essence does it. This one, you can smell the green tea. It has a pretty strong scent to it for sure. This one does only have a 6-month shelf life, so I don't know, keep that in mind. I think it actually did neutralize some of the redness. I'm gonna let it sit for a little while we move on to some of the other products. I think what I want to do is use this just in the T-zone. So I'm going to hold on to this after we use the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. And I'm going to use this on the high points of my face. I have mine in the shade Fair. I have a couple of other like liquid glowy products. One from Say. I still have the Charlotte Tilbury. So when this dropped, I was not as interested to pick it up before it exploded. I just thought, wow, that's a lot of product and I already have some. How am I ever gonna get through it all? Because I just use it on targeted areas. But it's still listed in like the new category on Ulta's website. Of course, I'm sure that's like due to its viralness and the success. Fat Doe Foot Applicator, and I'm gonna focus it on the high points of my face, I think. I haven't even like swatched this yet, so I'm just going straight in. And I think that's really all I want to use. e.l.f. did just drop a bunch of new sponges, but I threw away the package already. Like I bought these with the last order, but these are both new, and I've used this one for concealer. I quite like it, but I haven't used this one yet. I'll try and throw a picture up of this, but I want to use this to blend in the e.l.f. instead of like using my finger. Already looks like this just really beautiful natural glow with no sparkles. Like, I'm sure that it's gonna be a nice product with all the hype that it has around it. But this is an under your makeup situation. This is not something that I would wear as a highlighter, where with the Charlotte Tilbury one, I actually do wear that one as like a highlighter because I think it's even more glowy than this. I like this for the high points of my face, but I like it more, I think, under the foundation because it definitely makes me extra shiny. And that's not what I like as just a top coat, I guess. I actually want to go ahead and hydrate my lips. So I got one of the NYX Fat Lip Drip Oils, and this one's just clear. They're pretty inexpensive, so I felt comfortable getting 3 different shades. I think we're just gonna put this on to hydrate. It has a scent and a taste, but it's really comfortable. It's not like overly sticky. It's great. I've let this sit now for just a second when I wasn't talking to you guys, and it's so comfortable. And the scent is, what is the scent? Something fruity for sure, but it's pleasant. And this is like, it's thick, but it's really hydrating, super comfortable, and not sticky at all. These retailed for $9 on the NYX website. I'm not sure if there's like a markup on Ulta, but I will link NYX's website below. And yeah, I can already tell, like, I'm really gonna like these. They seem to be better than some of my high-end ones. We'll test out the ones with color, of course. And yeah, I could see myself throwing these in my purse and just giving myself a boost of hydration. It just looks really pretty, doesn't it? This e.l.f. Halo Glow is definitely tacky, so it's an under the foundation thing for me, which I've already said, but it's just not gonna be like something I leave on as a highlighter. So the Essence Primer, I don't think that it neutralized all of the redness on my nose, unfortunately. I just haven't found a drugstore redness reducer that really does the trick. I mean, I think it did a decent job. It's definitely better than the Makeup Revolution ceramide one, and I think it's 10 times better than the one that L'Oreal just put out. And I think it's dried down enough that I feel safe to go into this product. So this says that it has up to a 16-hour wear time and can be used as like a primer and a finishing powder. So the 5-in-1 is, 1, it smooths, conditions, refines pores, balances, and pre and post makeup application. I have been dying to try this. I ordered this when it first launched and it came broken. So I waited probably a week before I contacted Ulta, and then I said, hey, like, can you ship me another one? And of course, after that, it took probably another 3 days to get here. I wanted it so much that I actually did expedited shipping with that order. And when this came broken, I was like, oh my gosh. The powder looks really, really finely milled. It's a lighter powder. I don't recall this being in a shade of any kind. I think it just comes in one. So I'm gonna like zoom us in here. I'm gonna use it over my nose. I do have like quite a bit of pores on my nose, just like everybody else, but I wouldn't say that they're big or very noticeable, but I do wanna put it on there to see, oh, it's really white. Let me finish my sentence. To see how well it like fills them in and then blurs them. So I'm just pressing it in. I'm not like spreading it around. I did want to use it with a puff just because I felt like it would fill in my pores a little bit better. I don't think that it looks heavy or cakey. I'm gonna apply it to my chin as well, just all over the T-zone basically. It's so smooth. It feels so silky on the skin, and I think it did an awesome job filling in my pores. Okay, so we'll also use that as a finishing powder. I definitely want to test out how the foundation sits on top of it, but I want to go into the Essence Prime Like a Boss eyeshadow primer first. This says it's a universal shade, intensifying, long-lasting, and no creasing. Here is the applicator. This looks like super light, like very see-through. Not that it has like a lot of pigment in and of itself. I'm going to go in with that much just to see how far it gets me, because sometimes these eyeshadow primers, legitimately that much will be enough for both of my eyes. Wow, you guys, this feels like a powder formula, like a cream to powder or liquid to powder formula. I think that it's a good shade, a good universal shade, because it doesn't have a whole lot of pigment to it. But I do feel like it neutralized some of the color on my eye. I mean, I don't have a lot, maybe more purple than anything. I think that's about all you need for one eye. I know that's not a lot. It covered the whole eye. I feel like it went a good distance. Yeah, it almost feels silicone-y because it's just so soft. Like it's starting to get tacky for sure, but when you're applying it, it's smooth and comfortable. Let's give that a minute to sink in and we'll come back to it. I don't have a new foundation. I did pick up 2 different foundations in the newest launch in January, which was like the Revlon Illuminance foundation and then the L'Oreal Super Blendable foundation, but I'm not gonna use either of those. I've used both of those several times on camera, so I'm just gonna go into my Wet n Wild Tinted Hydrator. The one thing that I will say about this, even though it's super hydrating, very comfortable, light to medium coverage, goes on, plays well with every product, I feel like it actually runs a little bit deep. This one is in the shade Light, and I always felt like it was a little dark. And it may have oxidized some because I've probably had this for about a year now, but I still feel like it was kind of dark when I first got it. If you guys can see it on the back of my hand, it just looks a little bit dark for being a light shade. There is it on half of my face, but so you can still see the e.l.f. halo filter peeking through, and it looks quite natural and beautiful. So there are a lot of like glowy products that when I wear foundation on top of them, they go away. You can't even tell that I'm wearing it. But this one actually keeps the glow after you've applied the foundation. This is where the hype is coming from. So now I can see that. I don't think I've ever used the Charlotte Hollywood Flawless filter under my foundation before. I think I've always just used it like as a glowy highlighter because it had quite a bit of pigment to it. So I can't say whether or not it does a better job underneath the foundation than the Charlotte one does, but I can just see it peeking through. And this Wet n Wild product also is like kind of glowy anyway. I just think it makes my face look like plump and I don't know, like the perfect amount of coverage. It makes it look super hydrated and plump and just youthful. That's how I feel about this. I really, really like this product. You guys, if you have dry skin, I think it even works well in Florida in the humidity. For concealer, you guys, I'm gonna use the Makeup Revolution IRL Filter Finish. This is in C2. This is a soft matte concealer. This is a fairly new release and I've used this multiple times on camera, but it's a pretty medium to full coverage concealer and I really have been enjoying it. For a full coverage concealer, I feel like it does not crease and it's kind of hydrating. It's not overly drying, so it's been one that I've been enjoying reaching for. I am just gonna use one of those new kind of funny shaped, it's a little triangle shaped or pyramid shaped sponge from e.l.f. and blend this in. It's such a good shaped sponge for doing concealer because it really targets the inner eye, but then I love that it still has like kind of this flat side to it, so it could easily be used for foundation if you're someone who likes to use the end of the sponge to blend your foundation. I'm actually somebody who like will blend it in this way, but I notice a lot of people will use the ball end of the sponge, so if you like that, this would be really nice for like both, so you could just concealer there and foundation this way. I'm gonna go back into the powder now and set my under eyes. I know this is a finishing powder and primer, but I think we could use it as setting powder because it's more of a brightening powder. Might be better suited for under the eye. It's so soft and satiny. So there's a little bit of tack to the eyeshadow primer. I'm just gonna take what's left on the powder puff and really just kind of pat this down because I do not want the eyeshadow skipping. I don't have like a brand new bronzer, so I'm gonna take the Ulta. This is the Cheek Squad Cream Face Palette, and I'm gonna take the bronzer that's in there. I love this bronzer. This is so good, you guys. It's like really good, high quality bronzer, pretty neutral tone. For Ulta's cream product launch, I thought this was bomb. I have been so enjoying it. Just a clean sponge. I'm gonna twirl the sponge in there and just apply this. It's so creamy, so easy to blend in. It's just been fun. And it's so travel friendly and so inexpensive, but it has a really nice tone to it. I like that everything is laying nicely on top of the e.l.f. and that it's still peeking through, like no matter what, wherever I put it. Now we're gonna move on into the Revolution Balm Glow. This one is in the shade Natural Nude. I saw someone say that it looked like straight up candle wax, so I don't really care. Like I looked at it and I thought this is different than like a lot of the products that I've tried, and I did not try the one from Jones Road because it just didn't look appealing. So if it's gonna be a similar formula, I would rather do Makeup Revolution and pay less if it's something that I'm not gonna like. It's just like an aluminum tin. It's actually smaller than I thought it was gonna be. It does look like a candle. I actually think I'm gonna take that same sponge and I'm gonna take like the flat part of the sponge and dig into this product. It's more sheer. Like I'm not getting a lot of color on this swatch. Can you guys see it? It's quite like greasy, but we're gonna test it out. I'm digging in here pretty hard with this sponge. I just pick up as much as I can. And this may not be the way to apply it, but I'm gonna try it one side with a sponge and then the other side with a brush and see which one I like best. I felt like this one would look more natural and disperse the product a bit more, but you're gonna get your sponge really dirty. I'm liking it though, more than I thought it would, but it has a scent to it. What is this scent? It's like green tea. It's just a natural flush, like it's not a whole lot of color. And I think that it even says that. It says on here, it's a multi-use balm, luminous finish, natural looking flush of color. Exactly how it's marketed. It's super glowy and it's really, really sticky. So if you're not into that, you may not like this. Whereas we'll be sitting here for a while, so we'll test out if it dries down or not. I'm just going to go onto an e.l.f. buffing foundation brush because I can, and go into the other side. I like it better with a brush already. I think it's picking up more color. One thing that I do like about this though already is that I don't think it's overly emphasizing my texture for being a really glowy product. And the more that I kind of pound my brush in here, I'm picking up more pigment. I'm just gonna go over this one. I don't personally like this much glow. Like there's a lot of radiance to this, a lot, and it's super, super sticky. I pretty much put myself back together, but I did take off this side just so that we could go into the Ulta Cream Blush. I'm really excited to try this. I do like this trio and I like the formulation on this. It's just that this color blush is not my favorite. It's too pinky for what I usually grab. And so this shade looks so super beautiful and more my style. So I definitely want to give this a shot. And the last time I did the testing drugstore makeup, I just didn't have enough cheeks to try this one on because there were so many blush launches. So I want to give this one a shot today. I am just going to go in with this side of the sponge, the last little clean bit, to the right side. It definitely has like a similar consistency. It just kind of looks a little bit more sheer and the finish looks like it would be a little bit glowy. Picking up that much on the sponge and going in. Kind of similar. It has more pigment, but it's a very similar like super glowy blush. Don't they look almost identical? I'm just glowing to the heavens right now. But yeah, they're glowing. They're glowing. No, I don't ever think this is gonna dry down. Like, so unless you like this, like glow to the heavens and you don't mind sticky, you're not gonna like it. This isn't personally my preference. I prefer something that is like a cream to powder formula, or it can have a little bit of radiance but still dries down. Like I need the dry down because I don't like to set my blush because I never like to diffuse it. I always want it to be super punchy. This is just stick. Even though the finishes are very similar, there's just something about the pigmentation on the Ulta. It could just be color, but I think it has a little bit more base to it than the one from Makeup Revolution. So if you guys wanted to see some glowy cheeks today or some glowy cream blush products, you got it. I am going to attempt to kind of set this down a little bit. Otherwise, we won't be able to be playing with any kind of highlighter today. It's just not gonna happen. So I'm just gonna take the Wet n Wild finishing powder on a fluffy brush, see what I can do about setting this down. Oh, see you guys, look at that light tap. That just took away a huge amount of radiance. So this one, after I set it down, great. Still holds radiance. This one though, even though I set this on top, I probably used just a teensy bit more powder on this side and it's still sticky. You guys might love this and it may be something that you want to reach for on a very natural, like no makeup day where it's not over top of foundation or anything, just on bare skin. But the Ulta one you can actually set down and it still holds the radiance. So it's just a matter of preference. This one from Makeup Revolution just isn't really mine, and that green tea smell is lingering. By the way, I'm calling it green tea. I don't actually know that's what's in it. Essence did launch some more eyeshadow palettes and they were all in these 18 pan palettes, and I believe that they had 3 or 4 different color stories, but I just picked up one of them. This one's the Blooming Wings eyeshadow palette. This one is in the color story 02, Let Me Be Your Wings. It was the more neutral one. I have tried this once. It's a pretty safe color story, you guys. If you can tell, you get purples and neutrals and that's about it. You don't have a light shimmer in here, so you're not going to build a very deep look with this, and I wasn't able to. I got a very muted kind of everyday eyeshadow look with it. The first video that I filmed with the Drugstore makeup does have me trying this, so I do know the formula already. It's not something that I think we need to sit here a long time. So I'm just gonna go through pretty quickly and use some of the shades that I didn't use in that video, which is I'm going to play with this side of the palette more because I played with that side last time. So I'm gonna take this shade right here. Oh, they don't have shade names. So yeah, just this one right here in the middle. I'm gonna deepen it up with this shade. And then there is like this goldish brown shade that I'm going to use all over the lid, and so I'm going to speed through the application portion of this. I actually think you get more pigmentation out of this side of the palette than this one. I was preferring these shades and like how much darker they seemed than when I was using this purple side of the palette last time. I just didn't think that they were super pigmented. Like this color here gave me quite a bit of pigmentation, so I was quite enjoying it. What I don't really like about this palette is that these shimmers are super hard to even pick up on your finger. Yeah, the shimmer formula is not my favorite. I do think that the mattes are like pretty light, but the 2 matte shades that I used today, I preferred more than some of the mattes that I was playing with on this side. So I think you get pretty light looks out of this color story. I don't think this is the longest lasting formula. What I can say about it is that I do think it's beginner friendly. The shimmers though, like I give them a thumbs down because I feel like there's a lot more drugstore shimmers that just perform better than those ones. And I even have some shadows from Essence in the shimmer department that I like more than this palette. But that's all we're doing, just something simple. I want to go into the Wet n Wild Pampered Vitamin E makeup stick. Like I said, I feel like this is a highlighter because it's just such a light shade, where originally I actually thought this was a blush, and I looked at it when it arrived and I was like, there's not enough pigment here for this to be a blush on me. And this says Champagne Bath is the color. Again, I said it was marked on here limited edition. Please hold while I take off this packaging. All right, packaging is off. Yeah, like I said, I just think this is more of like a highlighter. It's kind of in between like a highlighter and a blush. I don't know if you'd want to use this for a blush. Maybe you could. It's just got a lot of sheen to it. It's almost like a metallic finish, and it's a pinky peach shade. And I'm already glowing to the heavens and back, even though I've powdered over this. But I'm just gonna draw it on and I think tap it in. I don't know if it's gonna make a huge impact though, because this blush is so crazy glowy. Yeah, maybe it is more like a blush. I think the way they design these is to kind of be like a multi-use product. So I don't know if it's like working necessarily as a highlighter, but again, hard to tell because I was already super glowy. I just know that I love the Wet n Wild makeup sticks because they're so inexpensive and they perform, like for stick products, they perform like better than some of my high-end ones in terms of like the way they blend out and how long that they last. And this shade is to die for. This is something that I would really like. I'm actually gonna try this as a blush next time. I don't have a new mascara, so I'm gonna go into my Essence Lash Princess, and then we'll come right back to play with all of the lip products. All right, lashes are on. I think that this gloss is pretty long lasting. It's not like those that feels like when you take it off that you're like scrubbing your lips to death. It's nice, and I feel like it stayed for that probably half hour, 35 minutes that I had it on. I didn't reapply it or anything. So I feel like the formula on these is going to be really good, but I want to see the pigmentation. So we're going to use them all. And I'm going to try and put like this satin and then maybe top it with one of these. I don't know exactly yet. So let's go into this one. I didn't say this, but the clear one actually has a shade. I think it's called My Main. And then this one is called Follow Back, which is like a peachy orangey sparkle. Not a whole lot of pigmentation, just a little bit. So let's throw this on. I think you can like layer this up to get just a little bit of pigmentation, but it doesn't have a lot. It's pretty clear overall. I layered this one up really thick several times, like several coats on my lips, and so it's even more shiny, but massively comfortable. I do think that you could probably go through this product pretty quickly though. But that is that one, and follow back. All right, let's go into the last one. This one is a more red shade and it's in Newsfeed. I really do not see like any sparkles in this one the way that I did with the orange one. This one is almost more berry colored. Oh, this one's a nice red shade, glossy red. Just kind of like a flush of color on your lips. These are not overly pigmented. This one reminds me a lot of the Clarins lip oil that I have that's in strawberry. They're just very similar. This is a dupe for that, honestly, and probably a quarter of the cost. I think this was a hit for NYX. I think it's totally worth your money if you're somebody who likes good lip oils, but there's that one. Let's go into the final one, which is the e.l.f. Face Satin Lipstick. And I have mine in the shade Effortless. This looks like a mauve shade. This feels super weighted, it's magnetic, and it feels like the NARS satin lipsticks. I mean, it just like, feels like a dupe for the NARS. Is that what they were going for? Hold on. They have to be like trying to dupe this. I just have one of the minis, and this one actually isn't even magnetic. This one is actually in a matte formula, but yeah, I mean, they're so similar. This one is actually much more weighted, but I mean, where would you get the idea for this packaging? You know, like this satin matte. So anyway, I have other e.l.f. lip products and none of them have the e.l.f. imprint. And when I opened this one, it does. It has e.l.f. inside of the bullet, whereas NARS always has their NARS inside of the bullet. Tell me this is not trying to dupe this. This is literally the millennia of duping high-end products. Like e.l.f. can't help themselves at this point. That's what I feel like all these brands are doing. Just dupe, 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 dupe. Which is great because it's at a time where prices have gone up, I swear, more than 25% in some cases. This is a pretty precise tip, so I'm going in without a lip liner. This is a purpley mauve. Yeah, it has like hint of purple in like the undertone. It's very pretty. They're totally duping this. There's no way that they're not. Even though those aren't similar finishes, I just happen to have this one in matte. I think NARS makes that packaging for other formulas. This is more of like a purple shade, even though it looked pretty mauve. It just has like that purpley undertone to it. Just super comfortable satin formula. Like if I'm gonna do a satin lipstick, I have figured out that I will probably always go drugstore because I have some satin finishes in some of my high-end lipsticks, and I just feel like Essence does a really good job with their satin formula. Now I think e.l.f. does a really good job with their satin formula, and there's no need to spend more money outside of the drugstore for a formula that's like this. I just think that this is the smarter option. Not smarter, like more cost-effective option, and they perform very similarly. Okay, so that was everything. I definitely want to clean up my mess and then do a final wrap up on the product. So let me just clean all this up and get it organized. Okay, for the final wrap up, the e.l.f. Halo Glow, big fan of that. I actually see a difference in this peeking through the foundation, so I will be using this again for sure. Essence Redness Primer, I think it did neutralize better than some of the other redness reducers that I've been trying lately. I actually think that with the green tea extract, I can see what they were getting at with the balancing and calming. And I liked this better than the other redness reducers that I've been trying lately. So I'll be reaching for this one again, and I'm gonna really try this one on a day that I'm extra red to see that if it does anything. But I can tell you, it didn't mess with the foundation when sitting on top of it, whereas the one from L'Oreal just looked like really cakey and super dry around my nose. So I did really like this. The Wet n Wild 5-in-1 Essence Primer and Finishing Powder, I thought it filled in my pores really well. Honestly, for a product that is like multitasking like this, I don't typically grab for something that I would use under my foundation and over my foundation. I just have never tried that before. But nothing about my nose looks heavy or cakey with this powder underneath. And I think it filled in my pores pretty nicely. I still think that I'm getting a little bit of oils peeking through on my nose right now. So I don't think this is like an oil reducer by any means, but I did think that it was smoothing under the foundation. So again, another one I will totally be reaching for. The Essence Prime Like a Boss eyeshadow base, loved this one also. I've been trying to find a good new eyeshadow primer lately, one that isn't overly pigmented, that'll replace my Urban Decay, but gives me a little bit more coverage than the Urban Decay one is, because it's kind of like a sheer formula, but it's the lightweightness that I like. Because some of the thicker ones, I do have a harder time. I think some of my shadows like start to skip because I do have like, you know, hooded eyes and like extra skin. So I think this one was really good. Because it's in a universal shade, I actually thought that just the right amount of pigmentation was deposited while still concealing some of the eyes, and it was just uber smooth when I was applying it. So I'm gonna reach for this one again as well. Let's move on into the blushes. I don't know if I'm gonna be reaching for this Makeup Revolution one again. I think I like the application best with a brush because you get more pigmentation than with a sponge. It was just more glowy than I really like, and it's still tacky. And it feels like if I touch it too hard, it's gonna pick up some of the product on my cheek. But if you're really into something that's super glowy like this, then you know, you might like it. I can't tell what the smell is. Green tea or lemon scented. Maybe it's lemon that I'm smelling. It's strong. It's strong. It's not my favorite, and it's strong. I actually think the finish is really pretty. I just don't know that I don't love the dry down on this. I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of this product. I'll have to keep testing it, but I can tell you I'm getting the exact same finish on this side of my cheek from the Ulta cream blush, and it's not sticky. So if I had an option, I would prefer a formula that's like this, that gives me the shimmer that this does, but that it dries down and isn't sticky. So I don't know about that one for Makeup Revolution. I'm gonna throw this in though, even though I didn't test all of the products, but the cream bronzer, you guys, oh my gosh. I'm dying over this. I'm dying. Like, I have one that's from Kaja that's similar to this, and I just don't like the formulation as much as I like this one from Ulta, and this one is less expensive. So I'm a huge fan of this color. I'm a huge fan of this formulation, and I think it applies super easily. Like I told you guys, I'm gonna definitely try this as a blush next time because I do think it holds a good amount of pigmentation. I don't think that against these blushes, it was enough for me to be able to tell whether or not it was like something, like even a shade or just the finish of a highlighter that I would like to use. But I will be reaching for this again just so that I can like test it out as a blush. But I like Wet n Wild makeup sticks. The Essence eyeshadow palette for me is actually kind of a pass. I have one other Essence eyeshadow palette that I prefer more than this, both for the matte and shimmer formula. This one wasn't my favorite formulation. I think it's actually really good for beginners. Like, it's super easy to apply. And I think the pigmentation, surprisingly, on the more neutral side was more intense than the one on the more plummy side. So I think that if you like Essence or something that's very beginner friendly, this is a decent palette. It's just with my collection and a lot of indie shadows, and then I try to go pretty intense with my looks sometimes. This isn't one that ranks at the top of the quality list in my collection. But again, if you're someone who's a beginner, I think it's a decent palette. It's just that the shimmers aren't good. Like, they can be better in drugstore palettes that I have found. These new sponges from e.l.f. I was already a huge fan of e.l.f. sponges. So like, I'm already biased. These aren't necessarily like a different texture, or they don't feel that different. Like, they've already come out with a sponge like this in the past. This is a new shape for them, and I'm really digging this shape. So I think this pack was like maybe 10 bucks, and it came with these two sponges and one other one. And yeah, I just love e.l.f. sponges. I feel like you either love them or hate them, but I'm a die-hard e.l.f. Total Face Sponge junkie. Like, they are my absolute favorite, and they're so inexpensive. So I like these new ones. I love this new shape. These Fat Drip lip oils from NYX, huge hit in my opinion. For the price point at $9 a piece, that is what I paid for them. I think that they're much better than going like 18 or whatever the Clarins one was. I'll put the price of the Clarins one and like link it down below in the description box for you guys, so you can kind of see which ones that I'm talking about, how the strawberry one from Clarins was kind of a dupe for this one. I just think that these are better. Very similar size, different price point, perform just as good. And then this e.l.f. Satin Oak lipstick. I spoke about how I feel like we need drugstore satin lipsticks and nothing different, because this one is just pretty and satiny and it looks glossy, and I don't know, I'm a huge fan of this, and I could see myself like repurchasing this, or not repurchasing it, but getting different shades in this because it's just such a comfortable formula. So that's everything, you guys. I hope you found this review helpful. I hope that you enjoyed watching me play with all this drugstore makeup. I feel like this was such a hit this year in the drugstore releases, that drugstore makeup brands, that they're really starting to pay attention to the items that we like that high-end brands are putting out and duplicating them at much more cost-effective price points. So I'm super happy about it, you guys. I hope you guys are doing great wherever you are. I'm out of here and I will catch you all in my next video. Bye, guys.